Hey, what's going on, Renaissance Lifers? Welcome back to Renaissance Life TV, where we take life to a whole new level, tackling topics of personal growth and success while giving you a different perspective on navigating life and relationships. On today's video, I'm talking about why you should learn a new language, and I'll talk about why I speak several languages. But before we get into it, if you're new to this channel, welcome. If you haven't yet subscribed but you love videos on personal growth, success, and content that helps you take your life to a new level, please subscribe to this channel and smash that like button. And if you want to get in contact with me, please follow me on all my social media as well. Alright, so let's get right into it. There are so many reasons why you should learn a new language, but the first thing I'll do is tell you why I speak several languages. And so part of what got me thinking about this is that I kind of have this thing where I will almost switch accents depending on who I'm speaking with. So if I'm in the South down here and I'm talking to somebody who has a real strong country accent, you will gradually hear my speech pattern change within minutes from what I'm speaking like right now to having a sort of a country accent. If someone comes from Europe, I will start to sound like I'm someone who's from the similar country or from around the same type of place. An English accent, a Spanish accent, a French accent, or even a slang accent. If I'm talking with someone who speaks slang, I almost sound like a completely different person. And so what I attribute this to is sort of the concept that I call being a chameleon. It's something that has developed over time. I don't try to do it, and it's something that's really hard for me to avoid. And so part of that is just relating to a person where they are. So a lot of learning a different language comes down to that same thing. The purpose of language is to communicate. So if you can communicate with someone else in their native language, you are able to relate to them exactly where they are. And it's a really unique bridge, a powerful bridge that you can use to get things done in this world. So the first reason why you should learn a different language or a new language is to be able to communicate with a different set of people. Now, what language you choose probably doesn't matter, but it can be really helpful if you live in a place that you already have a large population that speaks a different language. Learning that language. You may think, wow, am I really going to learn an entirely new language just to communicate with some random people? The answer is yes and no. It really depends on a few things. One of the things that it depends on is how much are you going to need to interact with that group of people? Is that group of people a large part of your client base or a large part of the demographic that you need to attract in order to be successful in your business, in your life, in whatever you're doing? That will dictate how much you will learn of that language. But having said that, I think that everyone should at least try to learn a few phrases and key phrases in as many languages as possible. That may be how to use a bathroom, good morning, good night. Just basic phrases, so if you meet someone who speaks that language, you can have even a very minor conversation. Now, this does several things. One, it allows you to be able to communicate and know where the bathroom is, right? So that's great just in and of itself. But the other thing it does is it establishes goodwill very quickly with another person. Even if they speak English, if you sense that they speak another language and they're open with it, right? And you speak to them in that language, or you start conversation and you find out they speak the language and you say something to them in that language, that builds so much rapport, even if you can say one word or one phrase in that language. Now, why is that? People tend to feel appreciative to see that you're making any sort of effort to relate to them. And when you relate to someone on something so fundamental as the language that they speak or their native language, that makes a huge impact. And people will be more open and apt to communicate with you, converse with you, even in English, because of the attempt and effort that you made to communicate with them in their native language. I've seen this a million times where people have treated me very well or gone out of their way to help me just because of the effort just because of the genuine effort that they felt from me in speaking to them in their native language. So that is a huge tip right there. Even if you're just going to learn a few phrases, it'll go a really long way. Another huge reason why I think it's really important for you to learn a new language is because it allows you to flow through different societies. A huge part of what I teach on this channel is not being boxed into any one particular box or be stuck or constrained or limited in any way. We want to be people who are fluid and can fluidly flow through any society, any situation, any opportunity. That also goes into languages. If you go to another country, you want to be able to flow. For instance, what that means for me is when I honeymooned in a country that spoke Spanish. I had that option to honeymoon in that place and not just honeymoon there and only speak English and have to rely on people speaking English, but being able to communicate with people in Spanish in a Spanish-speaking country. And that really went a long way in my wife and I's ability to enjoy our experience and really take out and absorb more from the experience. I really believe that my ability to speak Spanish at that time really made our experience that much richer and more enjoyable at the end of the day. So this is the chameleon mindset that I talk about. Being able to change as necessary and mold and kind of morph into what is necessary to succeed in any environment. That's kind of what I'm trying to impress on you, that it's not so much about the language, but it's about the mindset of being able to morph into what is necessary to be successful. So the last really huge reason why you should learn a new language is that it opens your mind to different perspectives. And if there's one thing that I think we're short on today in this world is perspective. I think there's an awareness that there are different perspectives in the world to some extent, but for the most part, most people don't understand other people's perspective. They can't even perceive why someone may feel differently or think differently, or what is the motive behind people's particular actions. What learning a different language does is it opens you up to an entirely different culture, way of speaking, thought process, etc. And that tends to groom you and morph you into a more intuitive and reasonable person generally. You just tend to gain more perspective about life, relationships, other cultures, and just people in general. And that'll help you wherever you go, no matter the place and no matter the circumstance. So that's something you can take with you to different areas of your life. Just building perspective and having a richer life in general. Before we end, I'll tell you what languages I speak, which ones I speak fluently, and which ones I'm somewhat well in. So right now I speak about 4 languages. I speak English fluently, I speak Haitian Creole fluently, I speak Spanish proficiently, and I speak French somewhat. Just a little bit is what I would be comfortable saying, but I speak French somewhat. Now, how did I learn those languages? So Haitian Creole I spoke because my parents are Haitian from Haiti, so that was a language that was spoken to me early on. And English I speak because that is my native language, you could say, because I was born here in the US. Now, what's interesting about even Haitian Creole is there's no guarantee that because your parents spoke a language to you that you will necessarily learn it. In fact, even if you know that language to a certain extent, when you get to the place of your life where you have cognition and understanding and when you can make decisions, your knowing and learning that language and it being solidified in your mind is all contingent on your effort and desire to actually speak and know that language. So at a certain point, you have children who may have been Haitian, for instance, or whatever place they come from, who were taught a language and they lose it or forget it because, influences around them, or maybe by the time they were 14 or 15, their mindset was that it was not cool to speak that language, or they wanted to fit in with friends, so they altogether disregarded the language and lost it, right? So I say that to say that part of why I speak multiple languages is because I had a desire to speak multiple languages. And I realized early on that it was very valuable to speak both my native language, English, Haitian Creole, and any other language that I could learn. So I made an intentional effort to do so. So the way I learned to speak Spanish was because I had a desire to speak it. There was a large population where I grew up, so it was one of the options in school, and I took Spanish classes all the way through even law school where there's no language requirement. I was in law school also taking undergrad courses in Spanish and upper level, higher level advanced Spanish just so I could build a really strong, firm grasp and foundation in that language. And French similarly, all it takes is a desire and a sincere desire to communicate with other people. If you have that desire, you will learn how to communicate with them, whether that's a little bit, whether that's a lot. But any amount that you learn will go a long way, and it actually builds and benefits you exponentially. In other words, you could learn one phrase, but that can give you exponential benefits and results. So it's just worth doing to begin with. So the last thing I will talk about is for those of you who wonder whether or not you could learn a language since you're older and you're not a child. And the answer is, put simply, yes. You can learn another language, and you can certainly learn several phrases from the language. I really and truly believe that you can do whatever you put your mind to. And so if learning a new language is something that you want to do and that you feel is important, you can do that. There are so many resources, and although the many resources can be daunting, focus on one thing, right? So focus on learning a phrase a week. One of the biggest things to learning language is immersion. So if you go to learn French, for instance, yes, you're going to look for French resources, but also try to find people who speak French. Try to join French clubs or French groups. Listen to French music on occasion or read French books and things like that. Those are things that really do help in learning other languages. So I hope you found this video helpful and informative, and that it's giving you a different perspective on speaking different languages, or even why you should even consider learning another language or even phrases from another language. So if you like this type of content and you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and subscribe. Smash that like button, leave a comment in the comment section below as to whether you think it's important to learn a new language, if you've learned a new language, and how you learned a new language. And until next time, I'm wishing you health and happiness. Cheers.